Hello, artists. I hope you guys are all doing really well at home. I miss you guys so much in school. So I thought what I would do is come home to my own art studio and make a series of videos that will help you make art projects at home with materials that you have around the house. So we're going to start with our first one today. This art project is called, are you ready? Da, 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 Magical Beasts. Magical Beasts, an art lesson in sculpture. How about that? Now, what is a magical beast? I think that almost all beasts are magical. I have 3 kitty cats. They're pretty magical to me. And of course, we can think about Greek mythology. We can think about stories we've read. But basically, we're going to pick an animal. It might be a dog or a cat that's in our house. And we're going to add something to it, change it to make it a little bit different, a little bit magical. How we do that's going to be up to us. But to get started, I wanted to visit the work of one of my favorite artists. You may have heard from him before because he was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and he lived most of his life in Mississippi. His name is Walter Anderson. Let's take a look at a sculpture he did that, to my mind, is pretty magical. Okie dokie. This sculpture is by Walter Anderson, and as you look at it, you can see it's not made out of paper mache, which is what we're going to be using today. It's a cat. It's a cat that's made out of ceramic clay. But I want you to look carefully at some things in this cat. First of all, to me, he looks very alive and ready. In other words, he's got a very clearly expressed gesture, how things move. This cat is alert, and he looks like he's looking at something very intently. He's very alive. He's not at all dead. He's pretty magical too, because if you look at him, he's got on his face what looks like a reddish mask and beautiful floral designs all over his body, swirls. He's purple and blue. He's not typical colors. So all of these things make him really interesting. Finally, as Anderson was sculpting him, he used 2 important sculptural words that we think about, shape and form. Okay? Now, what are those things? If I have a circle, that's a shape. It's flat, it's just a shape. But if I take that same circle and I make it 3-dimensional, like this orange here, I don't have a shape anymore, I have a form. And if you look at Anderson's cat, he does a little bit of both. He has shape, he has form. The shapes are on the surface of the sculpture. The forms are the big, round areas that make up the sculpture itself and make up the cat. So when you're making your sculpture, you need to think about shape and form. It's very important. You also need to think about gesture. How does your sculpture move? It could be stiff and still, like I'm sitting right now, or sort of sleepy and droopy. Those are both different gestures, but you want your sculpture to have one. Now then, suppose you don't feel like doing an animal. You might want to do a figure of some sort, maybe a mermaid, maybe some sort of monster. That's okay too. Walter Anderson didn't always do animals, though he was very inspired by the nature and the beautiful wildlife he saw in coastal Mississippi. This is a sculpture that he did of a couple of football players. It's also ceramic, but when I look at it, what I really like is, again, the quality of their gesture. I also like, as I look at the sculpture, how Anderson extends part of the sculpture out into space. The arm reaches all the way out. It doesn't sort of stay contained in one little form. That's an option for your sculpture as well. You can make sure that your sculpture is very active and alive. That's going to help make it very magical. Okie dokie. So to sum up, we can tell you that this art lesson is brought to you by the artist Walter Anderson, by the art elements shape and form, by the vocabulary words armature and gesture, and by the medium, that's the stuff we use to make the art with, paper mache. We've talked about all those words except armature, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. Now, what are the materials you need to create this sculpture? For the whole project, this is what you're going to need. You're going to need aluminum foil, also other household recyclables. It might be stuff like a toilet paper tube or an old piece of styrofoam plate that someone's thrown out, maybe some cardboard scraps. You're going to need some masking tape. You're then going to need to get some paper, newspaper like this, or copy paper. And you're going to need to get Elmer's glue. That's a very easily available material. Here's my masking tape that I have. Finally, you're going to need a bowl of some sort for later on that you can put water and glue in. And I'd recommend that you get a pair of scissors. They're not strictly necessary, but they make it a lot easier, that's for sure. Okay, so let's get started on our sculpture, our magical sculpture. Hopefully you have your idea ready. If not, think about it and pull it in. If you need to take a break and pause the video and go get your sketchbook and sketch out some ideas, that's great. Look carefully at the shapes and forms that you're using. Don't make something too complex. Don't make it too simple. And ask yourself, do you want your sculpture, your animal, to extend into space? How are you going to make your animal magical? Alrighty, this is an armature that I made to start my magical sculpture. Now, armature is what? It's the support structure of the sculpture. The armature is just like your arm or the bones in your arm. We all have a skeleton. That's the armature of our body. The armature of a sculpture is the thing that helps keep the sculpture upright. Here is the armature of my soon-to-be created magical bird sculpture. Now I have to tell you all, when I started this sculpture, I was not thinking of making a bird. I had a totally different animal in mind. And then I got my hands on my materials and I started building, and guess what? A bird is what rolled out. Right now, this bird looks pretty plain, but I think that what I'm going to be putting on him are turning these wings that I have on my swan into insect wings or butterfly wings. I think that would look really pretty cool, and I'm excited about the idea. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and let you gather your materials. Again, you're going to need aluminum foil, masking tape, maybe a pair of scissors for this portion, and then you'll go on to the next video, building the armature of your magical beast.